Empress Kailinor Valseris raised her crest in measured approval as the Imperial Council's holographic seals ignited one by one, binding the Peace Alliance Treaty into unyielding law. The chamber's vaulted dome hummed with the low vibration of ancestral resonators, their azure glow casting long shadows over the assembled lords, each frill and scale taut with unspoken calculations. "The Ceres ascendancy yields no sovereignty," she intoned, her voice a silken blade, "yet in this pact we forge chains that bind our foes as tightly as our allies." The final seal flared from Lord Vadok's podium, his narrow eyes flicking toward her throne with the barest hint of reluctance. Murmurs rippled through the ranks, conservatives shifting on their perches, progressives preening their iridescent flanks. Kailinor silenced them with a subtle flare of her primary crest, the gesture commanding obeisance without waste of breath. The treaty's core clause loomed in the central holo display, a mandated consort exchange with the human coalition, thrusting one of their kind into the palace's heart to symbolize eternal unity. She had fought its inclusion tooth and claw in private negotiations, but the coalition's naval blockades left no room for pride alone. Stability demanded sacrifice. From the chamber's antechamber emerged a human envoy, Jonah al-Said, striding with the unnatural steadiness of his bipedal frame. No translator drone hovered at his shoulder. He had mastered their syllabic tongue weeks prior, a fluency that prickled Kalinor's subdermal sensors like an ill-fitted scale. He wore the austere black and silver envoy robes, unmodified, refusing the offered Ceres tailoring. A quiet defiance or mere practicality? His dark eyes met hers without flinching as he approached the protocol dais, bowing precisely to the 37-degree angle dictated by the right of binding hands. "Empress Kailinor Valseris, herald of the ascendancy," Jonah said, his accent clipping the sibilants with mechanical precision. "I present the authenticated credentials of the United Human Coalition, as ratified by the treaty's Article 17. He extended a slim data slate, its surface etched with quantum-verified seals that shimmered under the resonator's light. Kalinor's viziers leaned forward, their crests flickering in skepticism. Humans peddled clever trinkets, warp stabilizers, alloy weaves, but their logs often concealed shoddy shortcuts, empires built on fleeting ingenuity rather than enduring hierarchy. She accepted the slate, her claws clicking softly against its edge, and interfaced it directly with her throne's nexus. Streams of data cascaded through her neural implant, schematics for inertial dampeners that outperformed Ceres models by 12% and cascade failures, efficiency audits on fusion cores that humans had jury-rigged from battlefield scrap, not revolutionary but relentless, iterative refinements, stacked like cordwood. Jonah stood motionless, hands clasped behind his back, betraying no impatience as the council's analysts droned their preliminary scans. Lord Varak's voice sliced the air first. "These claims strain credulity, Your Radiance. Human engineering is but bricolage, unsuited to imperial scales." Kailinor silenced him with a crest twitch. Dismissal tempted her, the humans' soft forms, their brief lifespans, their chaotic democracies, but the blockades had cost 3 frigates already. "Vizier Thalor," she commanded, her tone brooking no debate. "Initiate a targeted review of these logs. Cross-reference against our armory yields from the Vale skirmishes. I will not bind the ascendancy to unproven chaff." Thalor bowed low, his scales paling to dutiful pearl, and summoned his drone swarm to dissect the data. Jonah inclined his head fractionally, a gesture of respect that felt neither servile nor presumptuous. Kailinor studied him sidelong, noting the faint tension in his jawline. Human tells, elusive as vapor. He had navigated their customs without a single misstep. The bow's angle, the slate's presentation sequence, even the ritual pause before speaking. Her own envoys stumbled through human protocols for cycles. The chamber's outer feeds erupted then, holographic banners unfurling across the public nexus. Lord Cressig's conservative faction, those scale-bound relics, proclaimed their defiance. Crimson script scrolling, interspecies unions defile the ascendancy's purity. Demand treaty excision or imperial rupture. Gasps rippled, crests flared in outrage. Kreshik himself rose from his podium, his bulk quivering with fervor. "Your Radiance, this abomination invites dilution. Our bloodlines, tempered over eons. Enough." Kaelinor's voice cracked like thunderplate, her throne's amplifiers lending it seismic weight. She rose, primary crest fully extended, dominance radiating in pheromonal waves that quelled the chamber's unrest. Kresic subsided, though his eyes burned with factional fire. These proclamations were theater, probes for weakness, but they eroded the court's cohesion like acid on hull plating. The humans watched from afar, no doubt logging every fracture. She descended to the signing dais, the treaty appendix materializing in gold-threaded hololight. Clauses on consort integration, shared tech exchanges, supervised quarters within the palace core. Her claw hovered, the weight of succession pressing. Her airless line demanded this stability, yet every instinct recoiled at ceding space to an outsider. Jonah waited at the perimeter, expression neutral, as if privy to her turmoil. With a deliberate stroke she inscribed her heraldic sigil, the nexus sealing it across every allied world. The pact endures, she declared, turning to her staff captain. Captain Lyra, assign the human envoy engineer quarters in the Eastern Wing, supervised access only. Full court staff integration, technical consultations as per Article 23, under Vizier Fowler's oversight. He breathes our air. He serves our purpose. Lyra saluted crisply, her frills aligning in perfect deference, as commanded radiance. Jonah stepped forward at Lyra's gesture, offering a terse bow. I am honored, Empress. My skills are at the Ascendancy's disposal. Kaelinor met his gaze, searching for the concealed barbs humans wielded so deftly in their histories. Subversions masked as aid, yet his posture held steady, no predatory lean, no evasive glance. See that they prove valuable, Al-Said. The palace is no sanctuary for idlers. As Lyra escorted him toward the arched exits, Thalor's drones chimed their first findings. Radiance, the human dampener logs. They anticipate cascade harmonics we only modeled last cycle. Integration viable at 87%. Kaelinor crested slightly, surprise flickering beneath her composure. Not impossible, merely improbable. She dismissed the council with a wave, the chamber emptying in ordered streams, but her thoughts lingered on the human's retreating form. Quarters in the Eastern Wing placed him mere corridors from her private strategium, forced proximity, as the treaty demanded. Two sovereign cultures, now under one roof, their rhythms destined to clash. In the antechamber's hush, Jonah paused as Lyra outlined the access runes. The Empress expects precision, the captain warned, her voice a low hiss. One misstep, and supervision becomes confinement. He nodded, committing the rune patterns to memory with a glance, the Ceres script's fractal logic clicking into place like a well-oiled lock. Understood. I've worked with stricter chains. Lyra's crest twitched, a micro-expression of curiosity she suppressed. Humans endured their bindings without the ritual molts of renewal. Perhaps that resilience had its uses. Kaelinor watched from her throne's overlook, the treaty's glow fading. Kresic's proclamation still pulsed on the public feeds, sowing discord, but the logs promised countermeasures, human ingenuity wed to Ceres might. She turned toward her strategium, the palace's corridors already whispering of change. Stability was no longer a solitary throne. It was a shared vigilance, precarious and profound. As night resonators dimmed the spires, Jonah entered his assigned quarters, austere chambers of polished obsidian and glow veins, a far cry from human habdomes but serviceable. He unpacked his kit methodically, tools disguised as envoy relics, while palace drones hummed their surveillance protocols. Across the wing, Kaelinor's private guard shifted patrols, eyes sharp on the new shadow in their midst. The alliance was penned, but trust was a forge yet unlit. Court Magistrate Vesper's voice sliced through the vaulted chamber like a ceremonial blade, his elongated fingers unfurling a brittle scroll before the assembled nobles. By the Codex of Eternal Lineage, Article 17 Theta, ratified in the Shadow Reckoning era, succession demands purity of imperial blood. An interspecies consort voids the right, your radiance. Kaelinor sat motionless upon the thorned throne, her iridescent scales catching the lumen globe's glow, betraying no flicker of the storm within. The alliance ink had barely dried, Jonah Al-Said's human signature a stark anomaly beside her own, and already the vipers stirred. Vesper's eyes, multifaceted like shattered obsidian, gleamed with the calculated zeal of one who scented weakness. Factional whispers rippled, the warlords' block on her left, their crests flared in anticipation. The merchant syndics on her right, mandibles clicking softly in opportunistic rhythm. She let the silence stretch, a weapon honed over cycles of rule. Magistrate, you invoke antiquity as if it were prophecy. Present the full text. Vesper bowed low, his scroll hovering via suspensor field. Hollow projections bloomed, dense script in high serif, laced with marginalia. Faded annotations, geometric sigils, cross-references to forgotten precedents. Kalenor scanned it, her mind tracing the legal lattice. The clause was real. A relic from xenophobic wars, potent enough to unravel her pact with the human envoy and plunge the ascendancy into regency chaos. But invocation required consensus, and Vesper lacked the votes, unless he manufactured doubt. From his station beside the throne dais, Jonah leaned forward slightly, his dark eyes narrowing on the projection. Kalenor noted the subtle shift. No alarm, just focus, like a predator sighting a flaw in prey. Humans registered as fragile in her archives, short-lived, oxygen-dependent, culturally adrift, yet this one had negotiated the treaty with unnerving precision, his questions probing deeper than her own diplomats. The marginalia, Jonah said quietly, addressing the clerks clustered below. His voice carried the neutral timbre of off-world standard, translated seamlessly by the chamber's nexus. Third glyph from the apex. It's a jurisdictional override, linking to precedent of Lirath Vex, Cycle 472. There, the clause was subordinated to alliance imperatives during the Veil incursion. The head clerk, Thalix, recoiled her antennae, quills bristling. Envoy, these are sacred annotations. Marginalia serve as interpretive guides, not guides with teeth, Jonah interjected, gesturing fluidly. A secondary hollow flickered to life from his wrist cuff. A personal archive pull, cross-referencing the sigil against galactic legal nets. Lirath Vex bound a Krell consort to the throne against purity edicts. Outcome, ratified by the conclave after economic proofs. Your Theta clause has a parallel dependency loop here. He traced a holographic thread, weaving it through the text with effortless multitasking. One hand annotating, the other pulling a tertiary source on Ceres economic clauses from the alliance treaty itself. Felix's mandibles parted in stunned cycles, her compound eyes dilating. How did you... The Lirath matrix requires a full cycle to parse. Humans lack our neural indexing. Jonah shrugged, a human gesture of diffident humility. Pattern recognition. Saw the loop in the treaty drafts yesterday. Similar structure. Took a minute to match. Kalenor suppressed a crest flare of intrigue. The clerks buzzed, their quills vibrating in rapid debate, Vesper's composure cracking as his scroll dimmed under scrutiny. This human, her consort in name only, dismantled an empire's legal ghost with tools any field engineer might carry. Not arrogance. Mere competence. As if decoding ancient law were akin to repairing a shuttle manifold. Rise, magistrate, she commanded, her voice a silken thunder. The court notes your discovery. But interpretation demands rigor, not haste. She turned to her advisors, their protests a low hiss. I commission a full legal inquiry, under my direct aegis. No delegation to syndics or warlords. Vesper's scales paled to ash gray. Radiance. Tradition. Tradition bends to sovereignty. Kalenor cut in, her gaze pinning him. Murmurs swelled, but she pressed on. Envoy Al-Sayed, you will access the royal archives. Clerks facilitate. Attendants recoiled. Crests flattening. Tails coiling in scandal. A human unbound by neural oaths in the sanctum of Ceres' lore. Jonah met her eyes briefly, a nod of quiet gratitude, no triumph. As he descended with the clerks, Kalenor felt the forge of trust spark faintly. Protocol cracked, but her authority held, steel beneath silk. The public audience convened at zenith, the grand atrium thronged with petitioners under soaring crystal vaults. Kalina presided, Jonah at her flank in formal consort robes, his presence a deliberate statement amid the finery. Chants rose in rhythmic harmony, offerings projected in luminous arcs, until the palace nexus stuttered. Lumen globes shattered in cascade, shards raining like lethal confetti. Structural braces groaned, suspensor fields failing, a merchant platform bucked, hurling a syndic noble into freefall. Gasps erupted, tails thrashing in panic. Kalenor surged to her feet, her personal guard materializing in a blur of armored scales. Secure the perimeter, she barked, her voice piercing the chaos. Jonah was already moving, wrist cuff interfacing with a fallen Nexus terminal. fingers flying across diagnostics while he scanned the crowd for threats. A secondary tremor hit, ventilation seals rupturing, venting cryogenic mist that flash froze a guard's limb mid-leap. Power diversion, Jonah muttered, voice calm amid the din. He multitasked seamlessly, rerouting auxiliary flows to stabilize braces, while barking coordinates to guards in crisp Ceres. West pylon compromised. Saboteur signature. Quantum echo trace. Evacuate East Quadrant first. Kaelenor's guard captain Rylor hesitated. His crest flared in disbelief. Envoy, that's core systems, oath-locked. Override Protocol Alpha 7, Jonah replied, sweat beading on his brow but pace unrelenting. He patched a jury rig from a shattered globe, boosting the trace, human endurance kicking in, ignoring the mist's bite that would numb Ceres' nerves. The nexus stabilized with a shudder, platforms locking firm. Chaos quelled, but 8 attendants wounded, 2 critical. Kaelenor's scales burned with fury. Sabotage in her heart palace, timed to her audience. A direct gauntlet from shadows. Martial curfew, she declared to the hushed throng, guards sealing exits with plasma barriers. None stir until dawn. Captain Rylor, triple watches. As nobles dispersed under escort, she drew Jonah aside, her voice low, propriety fraying at the edges. You traced it. How? Residue patterns, he said simply, wiping frost from his cuff. Echoes from field ops. Seen it in pirate rigs. They'll have left a ghost signature. She studied him, this human who worked through crisis without fatigue, his mind juggling code, tactics, and courtesy as if breathing. Vesper's law paled against this threat. Lead the forensic sweep, discreet, my authority cloaks it. Root the saboteur. Jonah nodded. No false modesty, just resolve. Archives first for system logs, then physical traces. I'll need a small team. Your best, not mine. Kaelenor felt the shift. Not mere consort, but partner in the forge. Trust kindled, fragile but real, as shadows lengthened over the ascendancy. The old law tested protocol, this blade demanded steel. And in Jonah's quiet capability, she glimpsed an alloy stronger than any Ceres forge. Lord Varak stepped forward in the grand atrium, his armored crest flaring under the shield dome's azure glow, voice booming like a war drum. Empress Kaelenor, the Ceres ascendancy bleeds from divided thrones. Bind with me in the rite of eternal forge, a union of blood and blade, as our ancestors decreed. Discard the alien consort, let militarist steel secure your reign. Kaelenor's mandibles clicked once, sharp as a blade's edge, her throne's obsidian arms humming faintly beneath her grip. The court held its breath, militarists in ranked phalanxes nodding approval, traditionalists murmuring assent, while whispers of the human alliance slithered like smoke. Jonah stood at her right, still as stone in his envoy robes, but she felt his subtle tension, a human warmth radiating against the chill of protocol. Shadows lengthened indeed. Varak's proposal wasn't mere ambition, it was a gauntlet, flung before the gathered lords on this day of shield consecration, when the palace arrays renewed against rebel probes. She rose, her voice a silken thunder. Lord Thalor, your zeal honors the old forges, but the ascendancy forges anew. The alliance stands as pact sealed. Murmurs swelled. Varak's eyes narrowed, a predatory gleam. Then, without warning, the dome flickered, alarms shrilling as sabotage rippled through the shield lattice, crimson fractures spiderwebbing the projected barrier. Gasps echoed, guards surged, but the array faltered, exposing the atrium to potential orbital strikes. Jonah moved before she could command. Shield harmonics destabilizing, resonance cascade from Node 7, he muttered, already striding to the central dais console, his fingers dancing over holographic interfaces as if born to them. Kaelenor watched, pulse quickening. Protocol demanded engineers, not consorts. Yet there he was, bypassing locks with a jury-rigged override. Human intuition weaving through Ceres code like thread on a loom. He yanked a secondary conduit free, splicing it with a portable modulator from his belt, eyes flicking between readouts, multitasking effortlessly, recalibrating frequencies while murmuring adjustments to the attending tech priest who gaped, crests limp in shock. The fractures sealed. The dome stabilized, humming stronger than before. Retrofit complete in under 2 minutes. Jonah stepped back, wiping sweat from his brow with a casual swipe, as if he'd merely tuned a garden emitter. Cascade neutralized. Added a feedback loop to preempt phase shifts. Should hold against layered probes now. Silence crashed over the court, then a ripple of stunned hisses. Virak's mandibles parted in disbelief. A civilian meddles in sacred arrays. This human profanes the consecration. Kalinor's gaze locked on Jonah, a forged spark igniting in her core. Not mere consort, operative steel, concealed until crisis demanded it. She quelled the warmth blooming unbidden. Strength first. Profanity? Competence. Lord Jonah's retrofit preserved us where precedent wavered. Turning to her commanders, she issued the order crisp and unyielding. Run full simulations. Integrate his data into war models. No reliance on dusty scrolls. Report variances by dawn. The lead commander, Captain Elara Voss, inclined her head, but her eyes darted to Jonah with veiled awe. Ceres warriors prized endurance, yet this human had juggled lattice calculus and verbal cues without falter, adapting alien systems mid-chaos as if they'd been his own forge. Whispers spread. Impossible. Humans tire after cycles. This one improvises like a shadow operative. Virak snarled, but Kalinor silenced him with a raised talon. Protocol cracked further. She gestured Jonah forward. Brief the privy guard. In person. Let them witness the alloy you forged. Jonah nodded humbly, no boast in his stance. Merely a professional's quiet resolve. Of course, Empress. I'll map the redundancies. He approached the guard phalanx, projecting schematics mid-stride, his voice steady as he layered explanations. Shield harmonics meshed with predictive algorithms drawn from human field ops. Elara leaned in, her crest flickering with unfeigned curiosity. Your pattern recognition, it links probe vectors to atmospheric flux. We modeled that rote, you intuited. Team effort, Jonah replied simply, sketching a hybrid sim on the shared holopad. Your arrays are elegant, built for purity. Just needed a flexible shunt. Laughter rippled, good-natured. As Elara tested his shunt live, it held, outperforming baselines. Bonds formed in that moment. Pack-like, crossing scales and crests. Kalinor observed from her throne, propriety straining against the pull of alliance. Jonah's humility disarmed. He credited Sarah's precision even as his creativity bridged their gaps. Yet shadows stirred. By evening cycle as the court dispersed, leaks poisoned the ethernets. Human consort linked to rebel cells. Sabotage was cover for infiltration. Alliance breeds treason. Fury coiled in her chest. The militarist's ploy, Virak's faction no doubt, aimed to shatter credibility before simulations proved Jonah's worth. She summoned the full court to the echo chamber at Zenith, her proclamation echoing off vaulted crystal. Slander ends now. The leaks are fabrications, born of fear. Jonah al-Sayed will present evidence, comprehensive, unchallenged. Varric protested from the ranks. Empress, he is outsider. Partner, she cut in, voice steel-clad, whose blade shielded us when yours proposed division. Jonah took the central podium, unflinching under scrutiny, uploading dossiers, human agency clearances, mission logs scrubbed of classification but time-stamped against rebel timelines. No ties, only service records showcasing resilience in void ops endurance through siege cycles that would break serious frames. Courtiers leaned forward, crests pulsing, Elara cross-referenced live. Authenticity verified. Patterns align, she announced. No rebel shadows, only proven fieldcraft. Amazement swelled, humans dismissed as fragile diplomats, revealed psychological steel, optimism unbroken by isolation, emotional reads piercing deception where Ceres' logic lagged. Varak deflated, his faction murmuring retreat. Kalinor met Jonah's eyes across the chamber, a private current amid public gaze. Trust complicated protocol. His skills threatened rivals, yet secured her throne. Strength held, but alloy formed. Human adaptability forging with Ceres might. As the court bowed out, Elara lingered, clasping Jonah's forearm in rare guard camaraderie. You endure what we segment. Teach us this, multitasking weave. Jonah smiled, humble. Gladly. Show me your endurance rights in return. Kalinor watched the exchange, mandibles softening fractionally. Shadows receded, if only for a cycle. The old law bent. This partnership demanded it, and in the quiet after, she glimpsed the Ascendancy's true forge, not blood alone, but blended steels, resilient and unforeseen. Kaelinor's mandibles clicked sharply as the Veshian envoy swept into the grand atrium, his iridescent carapace gleaming under the vaulted crystal dome. Lord Varrock Thalor, third scion of the Vesh Concordance, bore no overt weapons, but his entourage's subtle pheromonal haze carried the tang of calculated menace, testing, probing the fresh welds of her alliance with this upstart human world. She rose from the obsidian throne, her own guard arrayed in flawless phalanx, and met his multifaceted gaze without flinching. Empress Kaelinor Valceris, Varrock intoned, his voice a resonant chime through the translator field. The Concordance extends formal courtesies on this cycle of renewal, yet whispers traverse the void. Your throne accommodates anomalies. Does the Seria's ascendancy still command its borders, or do soft-skinned interlopers dilute the imperial core? The veiled barbs landed like skirmish drones probing for fractures. Kaelinor's primary advisor, Minister Elandris, shifted at her side, his crest flattening in restrained outrage. The court murmured, a ripple of segmented limbs and stifled vents. She felt the weight of it all. The Empire's stability hinged on this consort bond, politically forged yet personally untested. Jonah al-Sayed stood a pace behind her left flank, his posture impeccably neutral, human features schooled to diplomatic blankness. But she caught the micro-twitch at his jaw, the human tell of coiled readiness. Lord Varrock, she replied, her tone silk over steel. The Ascendancy's core remains unyielding. Our alliance is enrich, not erode. Speak your concordance's purpose plainly, lest courtesies curdle to suspicion. Varrock's mandibles parted in what passed for a Veshian smirk, his secondary arms gesturing to a hovering datasphere, merely to affirm cohesion. Rumors persist of internal discord, trials, separations. The void watches keenly. A destabilized neighbor invites. Recalibrations. The atrium's air thickened. Elandris leaned in, whispering, "He fishes for weakness, Majesty. Defer to protocol. Dismiss him." But Kaelinor's gaze flicked to Jonah. In the cycle since their binding, his counsel had pierced veils she'd overlooked. Patterns in logistics, efficiencies in fleet maneuvers, that her ministers attributed to rote diligence. This was no mere envoy. Varrock's probe screamed deeper intent. She nodded fractionally to Jonah, a silent command born of their evolving accord. He inclined his head, voice low and even. "With your leave, Majesty, I'll verify the shadows behind his words." She granted it with a subtle crest lift. As Varrock droned into formalities, Jonah slipped from the chamber like smoke, his human stride unhurried yet purposeful. Kaelinor steered the exchange toward banal trade accords, her mind already charting counters. Varrock departed at cycle's end, his pheromones lingering like a promise of return. Word reached her in the warren beneath the palace. Jonah had vanished into the undergrid, the labyrinth of intercept relays and shadow nets where Veshian signals bled through imperial filters. She monitored from her secure nexus, holographic feeds flickering across her chamber's walls. Her intelligence chief, Captain Lirath, hovered at her elbow, his vents cycling skepticism. A human? Alone? In the undergrid? "Majesty, it's folly. Our operatives trained decasicles for such retrievals. He'll fatigue within marks, trigger defenses." Kaelinor silenced him with a mandible snap. "Observe." The feeds captured Jonah threading conduits barely wide for a Ceres frame, his body twisting through maintenance hatches with fluid economy. No exosuit, no augmentation, just layered thermal weaves against the grid's biting chill. He multitasked seamlessly, one hand patching a jury-rigged scanner to siphon Veshian bursts, the other recalibrating a jammed relay with tools improvised from scrap conduits. Human fingers danced across alien interfaces, adapting protocols on the fly, learning the grid's quirks faster than her tech adepts managed in Sims. Lirath's crest drooped. Impossible. He's enduring the toxin vents without a breather. And that pattern match, he's cross-referencing their encryption against our fleet logs. How? Kaelinor felt a rare thrill uncoil in her thorax. Humans she'd dismissed as fragile diplomats. Yet here Jonah worked double cycles without pause, his vitals steady where Ceres operatives flagged fatigue warnings. He bypassed a Veshian honeypot trap by intuiting its behavioral echo from ancient concordance raids, connecting dots across historical domains her analysts siloed. By dawn's pallor he emerged, data crystal clutched in a gloved fist, not a mark of exhaustion on him. He knelt before her throne in private audience, presenting it without flourish. Vesh isn't probing blindly, Majesty. These communiques detail bribes to our border governors, agents seeding dissent in the outer rims. They aim to fracture the alliance by exploiting the pending trial, painting your consort bond as imperial weakness. She slotted the crystal, mandibles parting at the decrypted flows. Timelines, accounts, names, irrefutable. Elandres and the senior ministers convened at once, their crests high with indignation. Mobilize enforcers, Elandris urged. Raid the implicated houses. Defer to us, Empress. Tradition demands it. Kalinor's resolve hardened. Tradition had nearly sundered them before. Jonah's insights demanded action beyond it. No, we countered diplomatically. First, dispatch decoy envoys to Varak's false trails. Flush their agents into the open. Jonah's findings arm us precisely. The ministers recoiled, but she pressed on, summoning the strategy sanctum. In the vaulted chamber ringed by holotables, she gestured Jonah to the commander's arc, not the observer's bench. Gasps rippled. General Korvath's vents stuttered. Majesty, he's no warrior caste. His counsel is actionable. She cut in, voice brooking no fracture. Seat him. Jonah took the place with quiet grace, outlining contingencies, faint inspections masking real arrests, PSYOPs broadcasts leveraging Vesh cultural taboos on exposed deceit. The commanders leaned in, crests tilting as his logic wove human adaptability with Saras might. Korvath's mandibles worked silently. Lirath documented furiously, later confiding to aides, the human sees threads we shear apart, research their histories, endurance like void beasts, minds linking stars, victories mounted, Veshian agents netted, governors confessing under tribunal glare, but the High Council struck back. In their marbled hall, subcommittee chair Lord Thalindra rose, her voice a lash. The humans' unsanctioned grid incursion violates edicts, impose provisional separation statutes, quarantine him pending formal trial. The alliance frays under such recklessness. Murmurs swelled to clamor. Separation would nullify the consort bond, unraveling trade pacts, inviting Veshian incursion. Kaelinor stormed the session unannounced, Jonah at her flank, his presence a deliberate gauntlet. This council oversteps. She declared, imperial pheromones flooding the air. Your statutes threaten the throne's stability. I dissolve this subcommittee herewith. Thalindra's crest flared. Precedent bends to preservation. Kaelinor's gaze swept them, unyielding. An open tribunal convenes under my direct authority at Morrow's zenith. All evidence, human-sourced and imperial, lays bare. The ascendancy endures not by division, but decree. The chamber hushed, ministers exchanging vents of awe and unease. Jonah met her sidelong glance, the human nod of shared resolve cracking the formality between them. As they withdrew, Lirath trailed, whispering, he didn't falter, Majesty. Worked through toxin, isolation, things that break us. And you, elevating him so. The empire shifts. She felt it too, the propriety's fine cracks widening to channels of trust. Vesh probed no more. Domestic blades turned inward, but her gambit held. In the antechamber's hush, Jonah murmured, we blend strengths, Empress. Your authority, my reach. Kalinor's mandibles softened, a private vent escaping. Indeed. And in this forge, we temper what comes next. Yet whispers persisted. Tribunals loomed. Foreign eyes lingered. Strategy demanded more than ceremony now, steel upon steel. Kaelinor's claws tightened on the armrest of her command throne as the hollow display shattered into crimson alerts. Breach at Gate Theta 7, the tactical officer barked, his frills quivering. Enemy skimmers confirmed, coordinated with internal signals from the heir's loyalists. She rose, silks whispering like drawn blades, her gaze slicing through the chamber's tension. The border incursion was no accident. It reeked of the old succession law's poison twisted by Lord Varakis and his cabal to force her hand or end it. Whispers had warned her. But this was the strike. Mutiny masked as chaos, timed to shatter her palace defenses, while foreign eyes watched. "Seal the inner ring," she commanded, voice steel-clad. "Divert cohorts from the eastern flank and summon the human, now." Jonah Al-Sayed arrived at a run, his human frame unarmored save for the lightweight envoy harness, eyes already scanning the flickering tactical overlay. Kailar noted it absently, his stride steady, breath even, no trace of the fatigue that gripped her officers after mere hours of drill. "Empress," he said, dipping his head with that infuriatingly precise formality, "I've got the gate schematics. They've punched through the outer emitters. Mutineers are piping false sensor data to draw your reserves thin." Her primary advisor, Thalor, recoiled slightly, his scales paling. "Human input? This is Sarah's command structure." "Silence," Kalenor snapped, propriety fraying at the edges. Jonah's presence grated still, this off-world consort bound by alliance treaty, yet his words cut true. She gestured to the display. "Speak, Jonah. Gate Theta 7 guards my private passage. Lose it, and the palace falls." He didn't hesitate, fingers dancing across the interface, pulling up layered grids her officers fumbled daily. "They expect a frontal counter, standard doctrine. But the gate's substructure has auxiliary vents from the old expansion tunnels. Send a mixed squad, your Raptor cohort for shock, my engineers for breach charges. I'll lead them personally. Flank from below, cut their power relays, then pinch the gate shut. Buys you 2 hours to purge the insiders." Thalor's mandibles clicked in disbelief. "You led Saris warriors? The human cannot—" Kalenor's glare silenced him. Jonah's plan wove her force's brute precision with something alien. Improvisation, threading risks her tacticians deemed impossible. "Do it," she ordered, and route all field command through him. His recommendations override until the gate holds. Jonah nodded once, already moving, grabbing a pulse rifle from the rack as if it were an extension of his arm. He rallied the squad in the antechamber. 20 Raptor elites. Their crests flared in unease at this soft-skinned off-worlder barking orders. Raptors on point, suppress and hold the breach. Engineers, vent charges synchronized. 3-second delay. We move fast, no chatter. Empress's passage stays ours. The Raptor sergeant, Kriva, eyed him sidelong, her tail lashing. Humans were diplomats, tinkers, not leaders. Yet as they plunged into the service tunnels, Jonah multitasked without strain, directing fire teams via comms, recalibrating a jammed emitter on the fly, even translating Raptor battle cant into crisp English for his 2 human techs. Alarms wailed, plasma scorched the walls. Kriva watched, transfixed as he spotted a pattern in the enemy's erratic fire, mutineer signals bleeding through compromised relays. "There! Secondary incursion feint," Jonah shouted, pivoting mid-stride to redirect a fire team. "Seal that chute." His endurance held where hers flagged. Hours of tunnel crawl, and his focus sharpened, not dulled. They erupted into the gate undercroft, charges blooming in perfect sync. Raptors tore into the stunned invaders, Jonah covering their flank with rifle bursts that pinned leaders unerringly. The gate slammed shut behind them, secured. Back in command, Kailenor monitored the feeds, her heart's pounding. Jonah's voice crackled over the link. "Gate retaken, Empress. Casualties light. Your Raptors shredded them." Internal signals traced to Verakas' tower. "They're mobilizing for palace assault." Thalor stared at the hollow, frills limp. Impossible. He anticipated their road assault, then improvised vents we sealed cycles ago. Kailenor felt the shift, a crack in her imperial shell. This human, once a ceremonial chain, now wove her victory from threads she'd overlooked. "Immunity granted," she declared, voice resonating through the chamber. "Jonah Al-Sayed speaks as the crown's extension. Aides, embed his words in every order. Treat dissent as treason." The words hung, altering her posture forever, from solitary sovereign to one who leaned, strategically on alien steel. Cheers rippled faintly from the ranks, but beneath lurked awe, a human leading her elites to triumph. Then the inner ring shuddered. Assassins breached the private wing. Cloaked figures, Verakas' elite blades, slipping through service ducts timed to the gate chaos. Kailenor whirled as disruptors whined, Jonah shoving her behind a pillar an instant before bolts scorched the air. "Down!" he growled, returning fire with one hand while slapping a shield emitter active with the other. She drew her ceremonial blade, its edge humming, and slashed a cloaker's throat as it lunged. How many? 6. Colluding with mutineers, Jonah replied, calm amid the frenzy, reading their formation like a child's puzzle. He multitasked, covering her advance, hacking a door panel to trap 2 in a collapsing grate, even noting her stance, adapting his shots to her strikes. One assassin lunged at her back. Jonah tackled it midair, human muscle enduring the impact without falter. Snapping its neck with improvised leverage, Kaelinor parried a vibro dagger, her mind racing. These were no border rabble, palace killers, proving Varakis' rot reached her heart. Jonah's resilience anchored her. Where her guards faltered from shock, he pressed. Optimistic grit turning ambush to rout. The last assassin fell to her blade, guided by his pinpoint call. Left flank, now. Silence fell, broken only by their breaths. Jonah wiped blood, hers, not his, from his brow. They synced with the gate breach. Full collusion. Her eyes met his, propriety fully cracked, revealing the partner beneath. You saved us both. Gratitude warred with caution. His skills threatened her throne as much as they guarded it, yet duty bound them now. Purge them, she commanded over open comms, striding back to throne amid bowing aides. Varaki's cells, raised to the foundations. Reshuffle command, Kriva to gate warden. Thalor to tribunals. Trusted blood only in the core. Thalor bowed low, scales flushed with unvoiced wonder. As the crown, and its extension, commands majesty. Kaelinor glanced at Jonah, now bloodied but unbowed at her side. The mutiny bled out in her feeds, cells collapsing under routed orders, reshuffled officers locking down the palace, external foes retreated, her empire steadied, but reliance on this human lingered, a new axis in her reign, threat and salvation entwined. Yet as tribunals loomed and foreign envoys circled, she knew steel met steel, and his had not bent. Partnership dawned, forged in fire, her strength amplified by his hidden depths. Whispers would turn to legends if they survived the night. Kaelinor's claw tapped the obsidian edge of the War Council dais, the sound echoing through the vaulted chamber like a verdict. Hollow displays flickered with intercepted transmissions, irrefutable logs of the foreign coalition's funding trails to the mutineers, their covert fleets now scattering like ash in a solar wind. Admiral Vexar, her once doubtful fleet master, straightened his iridescent carapace, his multifaceted eyes gleaming with unfeigned relief. The Caliph Concordance withdraws, Majesty, he intoned, mandibles clicking in precise formality. Their envoys transmit formal disavowal as we speak. The mutiny's spine is broken. Surviving ministers nodded in a ripple of scaled and feathered heads, their robes whispering against the marble. Lord Elandris, the elder diplomat, whose house had teetered on rebellion's edge, stepped forward. The evidence demands recognition of the partnership that exposed it. The humans' protocols pierced their veils where our ciphers failed. Kaelinor's gaze slid to Jonah al-Said, standing at her right hand in his unadorned envoy's tunic, hands clasped behind his back. No triumph marred his face, only that steady, unblinking focus she had come to rely on. Partnership. The words settled in her chest like a crown's weight, heavier than contempt had ever been. Formalize it, she commanded, her voice a silken blade. Draft the accords. The Ceres ascendancy endures not by isolation, but by alliances forged true. As scribes activated neural links to etch the decrees, alarms pierced the air. Naval auspex wails from the outer corridors, a blockade. Critical supply lanes to the rim worlds choked by opportunistic raiders, emboldened by the mutiny's chaos. Kaelinor's frills flared involuntarily, but she quelled them, turning to Jonah. Envoy, the lanes, he inclined his head, already moving to the central TAC console, fingers dancing across the interface with a fluency that made her technicians pause. With your permission, Majesty. Combined protocols. Diplomatic pings to parley, laced with our engineered backdoors. She watched, breath held against her will. Jonah's human mind wove threads no Ceres neural net could match, multitasking diplomatic overtures while recalibrating shield harmonics in real time, adapting alien encryption on the fly as if it were a child's puzzle. His voice murmured into the comms, calm and layered. Coalition remnants, This is human envoy Al-Said, under ascendancy mandate. Stand down for mutual salvage rights, or face synchronized fleet convergence. On the holo, raider signatures blinked, hesitated. Jonah's other hand patched through auxiliary drones, improvising a pattern recognition overlay that linked stellar debris fields to predictable retreat vectors. Creativity bloomed in the data streams, novel and ruthless. Minutes stretched. Then, the lead frigate peeled away, broadcasting surrender frequencies. Supply corridors yawned open, freighters already queuing. Vexor's mandibles parted in a rare gasp. Impossible. He juggled 3 protocols without a secondary cortex. Humans, they endure such loads as breath. Kai Eleanor felt the chamber's eyes on her and him, not shock alone but dawning calculation. Jonah stepped back, wiping a bead of sweat with casual discretion, as if he'd merely tuned a shuttle. Lanes secure, Majesty. For now. She nodded once, sharply. Council dismissed. Prepare the grand atrium. The court assembles at zenith. The atrium thrummed with the Empire's pulse. Nobles in tiered galleries, their bioluminescent crests pulsing in uneasy harmony. Kaelinor ascended the throne dais, Jonah at her flank, his presence a quiet anchor amid the murmurs. Formal propriety held her spine rigid, but cracks spider-webbed beneath. Personal connection, unwelcome yet undeniable. Heralds, she proclaimed, her voice amplified to thunder. The mutiny crumbles. Foreign shadows flee our light. But stability demands evolution. Scrolls unfurled in hollow form, decrees shimmering gold. Joint governance reforms, human council integrates into the high command. Envoy Jonah Al-Said shall advise on technical and diplomatic stratagems, his protocols now imperial canon. Gasps rippled, crests flaring crimson with shock. Conservative houses shifted, but she pressed on. Furthermore, I announce him as official consort and partner in statecraft. Our bond seals the ascendancy's future. The gallery erupted, not in acclaim, but fracture. Jonah's hand brushed hers under the dais, a fleeting warmth, human and steady. She did not withdraw. Public now, irrevocable. Elandris rose in support, his voice cutting through. Wisdom, Majesty. His feats demand it. Yet as cheers clashed with dissent, Auspex feeds intruded. Conservative enclaves on the outer hives mobilizing. Protests swelled into blockades of their own. Factories halted, transit hubs seized, regional stability teetered, whispers of secession threading the comms. Kalinor's frills tightened, but her resolve held iron. In her private alcove, screens alive with riot feeds, she faced Jonah alone. They test us. Pardons or force? He studied the patterns, eyes tracing social currents she glimpsed only in aggregate, emotional intelligence threading subtext from fragmented vids. Pardons. Targeted. Concede on trade tariffs for their guilds, but tie it to loyalty oaths. They bond in pacts, offer belonging, not subjugation. She weighed it, the political cost a blade at her throat. Choosing him openly invited this house as viewing the human as dilution of bloodlines. Yet his resilience shone, optimistic, grounded, seeing paths where her caution saw pitfalls. Decree it, she said finally, neural link firing the edicts. Pardons beamed to enclave leaders, concessions calibrated to sting without breaking. Guild seats in the reformed council, in exchange for dispersal. Hives quieted by dusk. Feeds showing crests dimming from fury to wary acceptance. Elandris commend personally. The enclaves stand down, Majesty. Your consort's reading of their fractures, prescient. We research human histories now. Endurance, adaptability. Legends, indeed. Kaelinor dismissed the call, turning to Jonah. Moonlight slanted through viewports, gilding his features. You bear the court's glare without fatigue. Why? He smiled faintly, humble as ever. Just work, Kaelinor. We humans keep going. And it's easier with equals. She reached out, claws sheathing as her hand met his. Formal propriety fully cracked, strength undimmed. Steel met steel, unbent. True power was this, not solitary rule, but amplified by depths once hidden. Protests quelled, reforms etched. The Empire breathed anew. Whispers in the halls shifted, from contempt to curiosity. alliance to awe. She was born to rule and learned that true power lay in finding an